Silicon Valley seeks to challenge the monopoly on international athletics, taking performance-enhancing drugs mainstream. The Enhanced Games are attempting to organize an Olympic-style competition with zero drug testing, where athletes may pursue peak performance through pharmacology. Indian-Australian founder Aaron DeSouza describes it as a science and medical-backed drug-taking regime designed to produce science-enhanced superheroes. Supporters frame the games as an extension of bodily autonomy and technological progress, a new chapter in a long history of human evolution and improvement. This is a 500-year history. From the Reformation's emphasis on individual conscience to consumer capitalism's offer of enhancement, the West has reimagined the self as an autonomous project. The Enhanced Games can be understood as an expression of this history, a coalescence of consumer choice and scientific capability, the first major transhumanist sporting event. An alternative to the Olympic cartel, the Enhanced Games promote scientific innovation, transparency, and the transcending of conservative anti-doping policy. In DeSouza's interview with the Australian AP, he expresses in straightforward terms that athletes have a right to do with their bodies what they wish. My body, my choice. Your body, your choice. And no government, no paternalistic sports federations should be making those decisions for athletes. In addition to criticizing the concept of amateurism, athletes in testing pools are subject to invasive practices, and the arbitration process comes under fire for inconsistency, loss of earnings, as well as irreparable reputational damage. For some critics, anti-doping is an extension of the war on drugs, an unscientific endeavor rooted in antiquated attitudes and evangelical hysteria. The broader discourse around the games and steroids in sport more generally is situated within broader questions of autonomy and choice, and the wider debate between those who believe that people should be free to use enhancements and those who believe that we should not substantially alter human biology. In this sense, the Enhanced Games are a cultural expression that is deeply rooted in Western intellectual and cultural history. Modern Western conceptions of the self as autonomous, sovereign, and self-creating is the result of a historical arc that begins in the early 16th century. The discarding of Catholic authority initiated by Martin Luther and the Reformations marked a turning point in Western thought. By placing individual conscience above church hierarchy and value judgments, the Reformation inaugurated a shift in moral authority inward. A century later, René Descartes further radicalized this notion of autonomy. In separating mind and body, he reconceptualized human reason as disembodied. The mind became a detached, rational observer, while the body, and nature more broadly, was rendered a mechanism to be mastered. This Cartesian dualism was as foundational for the scientific revolution, encouraging rationalist experimentation and mathematical explanations of phenomena, while disregarding theological limitations. Enlightenment thinkers such as John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau developed a vision of the individual as self-creating. Locke's idea of the mind as a blank slate suggested that personal identity was shaped by experience and will. Rousseau, in turn, argued that the end of existence was to follow an internal moral compass and to construct one's own identity. These perspectives established a philosophical framework for the bourgeois revolutions of the 18th and 19th centuries, where constitutions grounded in private property, liberties, and rights reflected a new definition of human dignity and freedom, rooted in the absence of constraints on personal autonomy. This reimagining of the individual was authenticated by vast economic and technological upheavals. As industrial capitalism replaced feudal economies, traditional ties of place and custom were destabilized. Previous limitations of time and distance were obliterated by innovations in transportation, communication, and mass manufacturing. According to American sociologist Daniel Bell, what uniquely emerged with this revolutionary period, with its newfound geographic and social mobility, was this principal idea of the individual and his self-realization. It became a given that one could remake oneself in an effort to pursue personal goals, and that one should not be constrained by outdated prejudice or custom. Rationalist optimism found further validation in the progress of modern science. The publication of Darwin's Origin of the Species in 1859 extended a mechanistic view of life to biological development, offering hope of a framework in which the application of evolutionary principles and scientific methodology could improve the reproductive process. Initially taken to its conclusion by the movements of the early 20th century, the instrumental view of the body persisted despite the disrepute of eugenics after World War II. In Richard Dawkins' The Selfish Gene, published in 1976, Descartes' disembodied intellect is reimagined in evolutionary terms. As from Dawkins' gene's eye view, the body is just a survival machine for genetic replication. Once made in God's image, the flesh becomes a byproduct of a selfish gene, contingent, transitory, and fundamentally plastic. As the Great Wars moved further into the rear view, Western countries were transitioning into post-Fordist consumerist societies. We saw a further loosening of stable employment and clear cultural roles, giving way to more fluid and mobile ways of living. Scientific innovations such as the contraceptive pill revolutionized the individual's relationship to their body. In separating sex from reproduction, the pill reinforced the Enlightenment ideal of self-determination. As such, Mary Harrington defined it the first transhumanist consumer product. By the late 20th century, innovations in advertising, media, and supply chains were materializing limitless personal choice through the limitless consumption of commodities, where individuals could choose to work and travel across the globe, constructing identities from endless streams of brands, products, and services. Since the pill's introduction over 50 years ago, copious markets have emerged around enhancement, with options ranging from cosmetic surgeries, hair transplants, weight loss drugs, gender-affirming care, anabolic steroids, and much, much more, all of which are increasingly seen as routine forms of self-expression. Freed from the limitations of geography, tradition, and biology, this culture of hyperliberalism and hyperconsumption have rearticulated and embedded the Enlightenment's sacred twin ideals: personal choice and technological progress. The promotional language around the games reflects these long-developing cultural trends. Their repetition of "my body, my choice" is an apt use of social justice slogans, a staple of activism for reproductive rights, marriage equality, and assisted dying. The games affirm the fundamental nature of this demand to their product in the first Declaration on Human Enhancement, with Article 1 being the right of bodily sovereignty, declaring that no institution has the authority to restrict the right of personal choice. Moreover, Chief Athletics Officer Brett Fraser plainly expresses this to The Guardian. "I'm for bodily autonomy. Individuals who are adults with free and informed consent should be able to do to their bodies what they wish." Their faith in the power of science to extend human capability, shown in Article 8, echoes the transhumanist optimism of the Silicon Valley venture capitalists. In promoting their event as embracing scientific advancements to push the boundaries of human performance and a bold step towards inspiring the evolution of humanity, the games are trialing the rhetoric of those in the tech elite who advocate applying emerging technologies to augment and improve the human condition. Recent years have seen an increasing consumer demand among younger demographics for hormone replacement therapy and performance-enhancing drugs, with the aim of self-realizing their desired body image. Online fitness culture has seen the superseding of the one dominance fake natural influencers by transparent enhanced athletes, ranging from bodybuilders who are open about taking PEDs to the teenage influencers who openly demonstrate and promote their use. This increase is reflected in the surge of content covering this topic, but can also be seen by the needles in the mini bins at pure gym-disabled toilets. The intellectual vanguard of the enhanced influencers were represented by the biohacking community. These creators promote experimentation with pharmacology, nootropics, and take a practical approach to transhumanist optimism, positing that if the tools to improve organism functioning exist, then there is a societal obligation to use them. Their rallying cry being, "A day natty is a day wasted." Seemingly, however, the mantle has been increasingly taken on by the looks maxers, who take an any means necessary approach to physical improvement. This increasing consumer demand and influencer openness is concurrent with the abolition of moral limitations and the idealization of personal choice, but also with a fitness industry worth 22 billion in the USA and 6 in the UK. Amid this gold rush, many entrepreneurs are attempting to make their own fortunes going beyond protein and pre-workout to cater to the expanding consumer niche with a preference for anabolic supplements. It is in this context that the Enhanced Games hope to disrupt international athletics. In the half millennium since the onset of the Reformation, the revolution, scientific, industrial, and consumer, revelation passes the foundation of knowledge, and fact became grounded in calculations and scientific experiment. From a religious culture of repression, the West had become a liberal consumerist culture, in which the individual is exhorted to consume as much as possible in an effort of personal discovery and self-realization. The Enhanced Games can be seen as one manifestation of this long trajectory, a path that merges technology with consumer choice to redefine our relationship to ourselves. From a sacred body made in the image of God to a plastic, malleable in the service of personal freedom and desire.